dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you.
Welcome to Dark Side of the Badge, where we talk about mental health, wellness, and ultimately suicide. Today's guest, I have Bobby Casey.
Thanks for having me.
Bobby is a 19-year alarm room dispatcher, and his story is a little different than what we typically talk about. His is not directly related to work. It just so happens that he still wears the uniform and badge, and today he's going to go into detail about some events that made his life turn upside down for the most part, right?
Yeah, definitely upside down.
So without further ado, I guess that's a good question to start with. What led to you thinking that you wanted to take your own life?
So I had come out of a failed relationship, and it was back in September of 2020, and I had some what they thought were depression issues. I went to the doctor. It was like, here's what's going on. I can't sleep. I would find myself laying like on my parents' couch for like hours at a time when I lived right around the corner. It was just really weird. And they were throwing medications at me, and it turned out that I was allergic to the SSRIs. So basically, I was kind of left fighting it on my own.
Yeah.
It would come and go, and then I really got to the point where I'm like, oh, I got this beat. Like I was doing normal things again. And then November came. Certain things happened in my personal life, and it started to come back a little bit. And again, I found myself like I would just be laying on my parents' couch, and then like an hour later, I'd be like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's time to go. So
like depression from a failed relationship.
Yeah. And like I said, I found myself doing things or not doing things that I would normally do. Like I just bought a brand new F-150. It had I bought it in October. At the end of November, it had like 600 miles on it. Wow. You know what I mean? Like I was just going to work. I would come home from work and I would be exhausted. And I would just think it was because, you sit there for 12 hours a day. And 12-hour shifts, the difference between you guys and us is you get to drive around,
sure.
Where we're stuck in a room, which there's pros to that too.
Yeah.
And I would just come home and I'd go to bed. And I just thought that was because I was tired from work. And then, the more I talk to people, the more they're like, dude, that's not, being tired from work. That's depression. Yeah. Like you're just fighting through the day and then going to bed.
Were you seeking any help besides just the medication at that point? Or?
No, not at that point.
Okay.
No.
Were you talking to your friends, your family?
No, I masked it pretty well. I fooled myself pretty much. Wow. That's how well I masked it. They would just be like quick glimpses into like my past, and then I would be sad, and then I'd be like, okay, it's normal to go through this. Like I've been going through this since I was 16 years old. With your first miles and stuff like So, I just continued to fight through it, and I just thought I beat it. And you don't ever beat it. No matter what anybody tells you,
you kept coming back.
Exactly. You don't beat it. If it's like an alcoholic. You have an alcoholic. An alcoholic has a problem. That alcoholic needs to work on that problem 365 days a year, because you can't go back and then stop again. You're going to fall off the wagon, and then you're going to fall off the wagon again and again and again. It's something you have to work on, nonstop. I wasn't a huge drinker. I was a social drinker, like out at brewers and stuff like that, but I found myself, like Christmas time, January-ish, I started banging bottles of wine like they were nothing, like I always used to say, the glasses were too big. They were built big, so, but, like I would kill a bottle of wine and then go to bed because I was having problems sleeping. And I just thought I was having problems sleeping because my schedule was messed up. And then and I'm a sleeper, so that's another thing that fooled me and everybody else, because I can easily sleep until 3:00 in the afternoon, just because I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that back then I wasn't. I can now, and get up and have the greatest day in the world. Yeah. But, back then I think that's what it was. It was the depression. And, it led to, my attempt. And that was another issue. That was a night of drinking.
So how long do you think was the span of you thinking, all right, I'm just sleeping a lot, I'm not driving, I'm going to work, I'm coming home, I'm laying on the couch, I'm
So
just
like that was probably, I want to say, like September into October-ish. I had good days, I had bad days. When we got into February of 2020, yeah, February 2020, guys on my shift now actually admitted to me a couple weeks ago that they all put in to come to my shift, a couple of them. And the one kid told me that he actually, that February, regretted coming to my shift because every day I came to work, I was a different person, you know. And
did you realize that?
I didn't. No. I sometimes realized I was snapping, like over something that was probably, I could have just been like, that needs 2 engines on it, not just a, 1 engine. But instead of just saying that, like I was yelling it, and I do have one kid on my shift who I give all the credit in the world to because he took a brunt of the beating because, he was newer on our shift and he was like trying to adjust. And, that's when, the mid-February, I started thinking like, damn, something's wrong. Like I'm treating this kid like a piece of shit, and he hasn't even done anything wrong to me, and then, a couple guys at the firehouse, one day was like, "Yo, you good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they're like, "Well, where have you been?" Because I used to get there for lunch, and then I was sleeping, and I was sleeping more working straight day work than I was when I was on night work.
Wow, that was my next question.
Yeah. I was on day work, straight day work, still am, but night work is totally different. You come home, you could sleep until 5 o'clock if you had, a busy night. And I was missing some time from work, because I just, I wasn't feeling good, or it would be 2:30 in the morning and I'd be like, I can't go to work. I haven't slept, you know what I mean? And that wasn't even the like drinking times. That was just like normal times. And to me, in my head, I was saying, you got insomnia, but really inside I had depression, and I was kind of, it was very hard for me to admit that. After my incident, one of the biggest things that I faced was, did I shame my last name? So there hasn't been, in 50 years, there's never been a time where there wasn't a Casey on the Haddon Township Police Department, So it's a known name throughout the town, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was in the firehouse for 25 years, that was very tough for me. Did I embarrass the name? That was, because to me, I don't know how other people think, but to me, the greatest gift you can get is your last name.
Yeah.
That's always been important to me. And when I went through this, luckily I have parents who are just amazing, and, I'm sure it was a little awkward for my dad, because it's his son and he's he did almost 30 years in township, and then he went to work for the U.S. Marshal's office, so, he's that, he's timid, but he's that rough and tough, old school cop.
That's wild.
Yeah. And my brother is the same way. My brother's like an old school cop. He's got 23 years on the job, almost 24, so it was very difficult for me to talk to them. My oldest brother, it was a little easier to talk to. He lives in Myrtle Beach because he's very laid back, and he's been through issues in his life where, like me and him could talk. And it's not that I couldn't talk to my dad or my other brother if I needed to. It's just that I felt like an embarrassment.
Yeah. Are they also in public safety?
My dad was retired from Haddon Township, and my brother has 23 years on in Haddon Township.
Police,
yeah. And then my other brother, Billy, he lives out in Myrtle Beach. He actually just moved to Georgia. He works in the sanitation, but he actually does work for sanitation. He's a router for their trucks. And then I have a sister who lives in North Carolina, up by the Appalachian Mountains.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you went to get help, did you research this? Did you know that you wanted to speak with someone? You mentioned that you medication, but how did you get to that point?
So I got to that point because I actually had a through the insurance plan we had, you have the month or yearly health check,
Okay.
where they don't charge you a $10 copay.
Yeah.
So I went for that, and I actually had also been sick, and like a cold.
Yeah.
And my doctor at the time, she since moved, but she was fantastic, and she asked me straight up, like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." We discussed it, and
Was that the brunt of what she said, though?
yeah, that was.
It's really hard to ask someone,
Mhm.
"Are you okay? Are you feeling like you want to harm yourself, or are you feeling suicidal?" To ask someone that is hard.
Correct. So it was.
I'm glad she did, though.
Yeah. So it was another doctor. I went to. Well, I won't name where I went. I went to another doctor, and he told me the same thing, and he just wrote me a prescription. So
Just like that.
he wrote me a prescription for SSRIs and a prescription for 90 Xanax at one
Wow.
point. Yeah, one pop. So now being in the field, I know how that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
That stuff you don't want to get into. So I went home, and I took the medication. I woke up the next day. I felt terrible.
Mm.
Like the commercials where they say, "Do you wake up and you don't feel yourself? Call your doctor immediately." Well, that's what I did.
Yeah.
So it was actually my mom had said to me, like, "Why don't you try to find another doctor, because something's not working here."
Yeah.
So I went to her, the other doctor, and that's when she was like, "What did you experience?" So I told her, and she was like, "I'm going to call this an allergy." And they actually put it on my
Wow.
chart as an allergy.
Okay.
So she's the one that kind of got the ball rolling, but like I said, it didn't work. So she was like, "Well, let's try different kinds of meds," and none of them really kicked in.
Yeah.
So that's why I just pretty much battled it on my own. And she would ask me, "How are you?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm great."
Yeah. Go run it up. Yeah. So this is the September, October timeframe still?
Yeah. Yeah. September, October, November-ish. Yeah.
All right. So moving forward, you start to think you're just going to do it on you're going to help yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So continue. I mean, what happened next? Like, where'd you go from there?
So I pretty much just wrote it out, and then I'll pretty much just start the day before, February 28th, 2020. I was in work. It was a Friday, and we had a meeting with like our admin and a couple other different departments in the public service or public safety, and I was in the meeting, and my job was to create a radio plan in case shit hit the fan, because it's a political person coming in. So I went downstairs to my shift. We pulled out a big white like smart board. We wrote out everything. We had backup ambulances, backup fire departments. I had them at certain radio for their strongest radios. They were put. It was probably one of the funnest days I've had at the communication center. I mean, we've had some great fun, but like everybody clicked that day on my shift. Yeah. Like everybody clicked. We were all doing everything we could. Guys were yelling out ideas. Great, write it down. Do this, do that. The administration came down. They looked at it. They were like, "Wow, impressive." So I mean, not only the administration, it was our chief. Yeah. So like he give you a nice pat on the back, like, "Hey, nice job. That's going to work."
Yeah.
I mean, they could have literally within 5 minutes. The way we had it planned, we could have had 10 ambulances and 4 different fire departments to them. So I leave work on a high. Like everything's great. I go home. I stop with my parents. So where I lived, I sold my house. So where I lived, if you looked out my front door, you could see the house that I grew up in. That was right there from my parents' house. And I stopped at my parents' house, and guys at work will know this. They make fun of me all the time. My mom makes my lunch for the next day.
Why not?
Yeah, it lives right there. So now I'm like a little further away, so I gotta like take an extra. I leave work a little early, So I go home. I talk to them. I'm excited. Like I can remember my mom telling me like months later, that I was excited. We had this plan, and everybody on the shift worked together, and we had just gotten transferred all together in January. So for something like that to come together so fast, amazing. Go home. See some things on social media that I don't want to see from my personal life or whatever. I have personal issues. I'm like, okay, I'll just have a glass of wine, make me sleep faster. Well, a couple more things pop up. couple text messages,
Related
a phone call
to the relationship, the prior.
yes. So, but like I said, that's all in the past.
Yeah.
So I'll just go from what happened then. So at this point, I'm in 2 bottles. No, I'm sorry, about a bottle and a half. I go to bed. I wake up 2:30, come back down, have another glass of wine. So now I'm 2 bottles in because, like I said, big glasses. So I go back upstairs. It's 4:30. I'm like wide awake. I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to work. I'm drunk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I don't have any thoughts of calling out.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that when I started thinking about that later on, something was going on.
Yeah.
Okay. I come down, I get a shower.
Were you feeling like, can you describe how you felt besides drunk or like?
To be honest with you, I was clear thoughts and floating almost like I was just, like a good buzz.
Yeah.
But I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
So I got in the shower. I know this is really weird, but I got in the shower. I put gel in my hair. I combed my hair almost as if like I was going to go to work.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, So I started to walk to the kitchen. And this is like where it gets pretty dark. But what I do want to say to you now is this is how I felt then. I've come way further now. And when I talk about this, it might upset some people because it's pretty graphic. However, if it can stop one person who's thinking about doing it and saying, shit, I ain't going through that.
Yeah.
It works, So I walk up to my kitchen counter. At this point, I am so emotionally hurt and just like not emotionally hurt because of like the relationship or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just everything from it could be work, everything piled on me all at once. I couldn't take it. It was just, I was in so much emotional pain, so much, just not myself.
Yeah.
And I'm standing at the counter and at this point, I can't remember exactly why, but I had a block of knives and I picked up the knife and I cut my wrist. And remember how Mark was talking about ability? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I've worked the ambulance for years. Not that this is a tutorial or anything, but I know that you don't go across, you go up, all that stuff. So that was the ability part in my story. I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
So luckily I wasn't that good at it, but so I cut my wrists. I'm bleeding and I'm bleeding, like I can realize it. But the minute I cut my wrists, all of that emotional pain and the mental blockage went away. Okay. And I learned later on that,
relief.
Yeah. And that's why people cutters cut themselves because they cover emotional pain with physical pain.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was drunk enough to where I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went wrist, arm. That's all I remember. The neck, I don't remember. So I was standing in my kitchen. I was bleeding like a stuffed pig. Okay. And I was leaning against where the sink is. And I started to slide down because I was obviously losing strength.
Yeah. So
me and you talked previously. I had a close friend who was a police officer who killed himself years in 2008. I'm going to say I could be wrong, right? But he dialed 911 and hung up, knowing that the cops would get there and find him, and not his family. So me, and in this state, I can't believe I could even think of this. 25 years as a fireman and working ambulance. You being a cop, being a fireman in the past, when someone's circling the drain. Yeah. So you obviously know when you're circling the drain. So I knew I had not much time left. Yeah. So I put that out because I know where I work. Okay. And I don't mean to take a shot at anybody like that, but a lot of people like Facebook, So like I said, I put it out. It was just something dumb. It was like, I love you. I'm sorry, and Chris Austin from your department actually called in and saw it and was like, yo, somebody needs to check on Bobby because he just put this. So as this was going on, it was starting to spread. through the center. Like everybody was starting to read it and be like, this isn't that dude. You know, even when I met with Mark, he was like, I read it that morning and was like, he's not that brazen. Like, this isn't him.
Wow.
So my sister read it. Okay. She call me. I don't have energy to pick this up. You know what I mean? Like, when they found me, I had an open text. I've never locked my phone. I have an open text on my phone from my mom that says, I'm coming down there. Are you okay? And I said, Mom, I already left for work. And I lied to my mom, you know.
Wow.
Now, she asks me all the time, do I remember doing that? I actually do not remember lying to my mom, but it was there.
Yeah.
So they check the cameras at work. I'm always at work by 20 after 6:30, because I like that half hour, clear your mind, you know, listen to music. And my truck's not in the parking lot. So my roommate at the time was a lieutenant in Central, and he's now knows something's wrong. Yeah. So he calls Haddon Township. He actually calls them in the station because he knew they were in there. It was shift change.
Yeah.
So the cop picks up the phone. It was a sergeant. I've known him my whole life. He was a rookie when my dad was on the department. He goes, yeah, I'll go over there. They don't even ask for the address. They know, you know, where I live. So at this point, I'm on the ground. I'm starting to fade out. And I hear banging, but I can't focus my eyes because I've lost all my energy.
Yeah.
So the next thing I know, so my back door was in my kitchen and there's a window. They must have looked in the kitchen window and saw me laying or sitting on the floor. Kick the door in, boom, blow it right off the hinges, wall and all, tile, everything. Okay, so they come over to me and they're screaming at me and the one sergeant, Prez, was like, I don't think he saw my arms first. I think he just saw my neck, because I believe what I remember him saying to me was, who did this and who else is in the house? Because I think at that point, even he was like, no way. You know what I mean? Like, no way.
Yeah.
So they start working on me. I can hear commotion. I hear them screaming on the radio. And then for some reason, I guess just being a police dispatcher back in the day, I picked up on it right away. I heard them ask Collingswood, because where I lived was right on the border, to come over because they carried tourniquets. And Haddon Township didn't have them at the time. So they come in, tourniquets. So at this point, like, I can honestly tell you, I'm pissed. I am pissed that these dudes are in my house trying to save my life, because I did not want to come out of that kitchen that morning. So I fight them with the tourniquets. Well, I think I'm fighting them, but I'm not fighting them. I don't have any energy.
So you were still in the mindset that you were better off gone.
Gone. Oh yeah, by 100% better off gone. So the ambulance crew comes in. I hear their voices. I know their voices. I mean, I've known the one since they brought him home after birth, you know, and the other one has been coming up as an explorer. One kid's 20 years old. The other one's 23, you know. So I hear him talking to me, and Alex is in my face. He's 21 years old now. He turned 21 like a couple weeks after. He's in my face, and he's got me by like the cheek, and he's telling me to stay with him. And I remember this clearly. He's like, stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. And I said to him, I'm like, Alex, let me go. And he was like, I'm not letting you go. And I said to him, I'm like, Alex, my job's done. You know, I'm done. Just let me go. And I started to fade out. So Alex actually, he punched me in the chest and then gave me a sternum rub. And I opened my eyes, and I can remember saying to him again, Alex, just please let me go. And he was like, you're not going anywhere. You know, they're young kids. You know what I mean? So I can't even, to this day, I feel, we've talked and, you know, I feel terrible that I put them in that situation, but, you know, so I fade out. This is where it got really weird, and it's all documented too. So, you know what I mean? I heard Nate yell to, the only reason I'm using their names is because it's easier to follow. I hear Nate yell to Alex, holy shit, he just coded on us. So at that point in my head, I hear him say it, and I'm like, no, I didn't. Like in my head, I'm like, bro, I'm right here. Yeah. But I can't communicate. So I'm not sure if that was the respiratory arrest issue or what it was, but load me in the ambulance. Actually, that's the last thing I remember at the house. I remember floating, and Alex had told me what that was. Is the medics were setting up in the truck. The cops literally threw me into the Reeves, picked the Reeves up, and ran out the door with me. So
you were floating.
I was floating. Yeah.
It was
So,
not in the clouds.
yeah. So as I was floating, I remember hearing screaming, which turned out to be my mom. Because what had happened was my mom woke my dad up, or my dad was outside with the dog. It was he was newer, he was a puppy, and when I worked, he stayed with them. So my dad was out in the backyard with my dog. My mom comes out and says to him, "Something's wrong with Bobby, we have to get down there." So my dad says, "All right, let me grab the dog." Well, as he says that, he looks up and he sees all the police cars flying down the street. Well, he puts two and two together. You know, he knows something's wrong.
Yeah.
So he gets there. Him and my mom are on the front lawn. You know, I kind of remember screaming. They told me it was my mom. I didn't hear exactly what it was.
Yeah.
That was out. In the ambulance, the medics somehow, they couldn't get lines in me, obviously, because I was cut. So they did the, what you would know in the military, the IO, where they basically take the DeWalt drill and drill into your shin bone, and they pump me with fluids with that. They were able to bring up my blood pressure, but at one point my blood pressure was 65/35. I was told that if the ambulance wasn't driven as fast as it was, if they would have been 3 minutes behind, I would have never made it out of the back of the ambulance. So I get put in the trauma.
Cooper?
Yeah, go to Cooper Trauma. Almost like he got there in like 4 minutes. Metro, you know, I know people have complaints about Metro, but they shut down all of Haddon Avenue, you know, to get it through. They had police cars in front, police cars in the back. I mean, it's a family thing, you know, at that point. So the weird part of that is they were also worried about getting me to the hospital that they actually forgot my parents on the lawn. Like they had to drive to the hospital themselves. So, which would have never happened if things were like, you know, somewhat not chaotic,
Sure.
you know.
Your dad probably would have had a friend that was working. And
Yeah, they all knew him, right? So they call. All right, get to Cooper. I get wheeled in. I don't remember anything.
Yeah. You're unconscious.
I'm unconscious at this point. So I remember them yanking in my mouth. I do remember that. And I think what it was, Mike, is I think I might have had a dip in my mouth. And they were trying to clear it out. You know what I mean? So they started working on me. At this point, my mom got to the hospital. My mom and dad got to the hospital. My buddy Bresci got there because he heard the call go out. Somebody got a hold of Danny and Danny Devitt, and you know, Danny actually almost got, or he did get into a physical altercation with a security guard because they were like, "You can't go back there," and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going." You know, so he, you know, and everybody ends up coming there. Luckily, a friend of mine has a little, you know, has some juice, so they were able to get a conference room on the second floor by the trauma OR. So this is where later on in life, or later on in the whole scheme of things, I realized how much support I had.
Sure.
You know, like people from work were showing up.
Yeah.
Chief Palumbo from Pensacola Fire Department sent his career guys to get coffee and donuts and sit with my parents. You know, this was just like, I wish I took advantage of that prior.
Yeah.
So
because you knew that they cared about you
exactly
now.
But, yeah, but back then I didn't think they did as much because I realized now I didn't care about myself, you know. So I got wheeled into surgery. Trauma team came in, told my mom and dad, "We lost a lot of blood. We're going to see if we can stop it. We have to do some exploratory, see what I hit." Okay. So about 1.5 centimeters off from the jugular, I went. So I went into surgery. So 180-pound person has 9 units of blood in it, or in them.
Mm-hmm.
I took 5 in Cooper Trauma, 5 things of blood. I got there, when I got wheeled in, the trauma tech in the surgery room, she had to excuse herself because her and my dad were cops together. We grew up together. She taught me how to drive, you know, in her brown Cadillac, you know, that she had back in '93 in high school. So there's a lot of intertwining going on. I went into surgery. I don't really remember how long I was in surgery for, maybe 2 hours, something like that. They didn't like the way my blood pressure was going and my heart rate, so they put me in the OR like PCU, but it was for trauma, and they were going to give me 3 hours from what the one doctor said, and if my vitals didn't come in, they were going back in to see if I was bleeding somewhere else, and they couldn't find it. Within an hour, my pulse was back to 75, and my blood pressure was 120 over 80. I don't think it's been like that since I was a senior in high school. You know what I mean? So I get moved into the room. You know, at this point, I don't leave trauma, and I'm in the room, and you know, people are. I'm on a tube. I'm on a vent. This is very weird. I wake up, and they wake me up, and I hear the doctor say, "Don't let him see that." So that was the vent that I was on. Okay, so obviously I got this tube, and I can hear beeping, and I'm not breathing on my own. Do you know what I mean? So someone's holding my hand, or I'm holding someone's fingers.
Yeah. So
I look up, and at this point, I don't even know what I did at this point. I look up, and it's this guy I work with, Matt Frankowski. He's from Manifam. So first of all, I don't know what I did.
Yeah.
And second of all,
why is he here?
Yeah, why is he here? Where am I at this point, you know? So he walked in as I was being wheeled out of the operating room, and he basically just blended in as one of the operating teams. And yeah, so.
What time is this now? Noon?
Yeah, we'll say around noon. So 6:55 was the entry into the trauma center. So they take me out of that room. They put me in TICU, trauma ICU. That's when that night, or when I was coming off the vent, they didn't like the way I was breathing. So they put me out, left me on the vent a little longer. Take me off the vent. I opened my eyes. My brother was in the Poconos. He drove home from the Poconos, made it home in like an hour and 10 minutes. So I see him, his sister-in-law, my sister-in-law, Vicky, and my parents. And my mom is looking at me. My brother's got a smile on his face, ear to ear, and I'm like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Like,
bad dream.
Yeah. So that's when one of them, I don't even know who it said, was like, Bobby, you trying to kill yourself? And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you're in Cooper trauma. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So that night was just a blur. You know, they also treat you like gold there. Yeah. And in your profession, God forbid anything ever happens, that is the place to go because they are top notch. That's my second trauma stint. I got hit by a car when I was 12 years old. But yeah, so but they were just amazing. You know, they would come up to you with medication and be like, do you need this? And you'd be like, no. And they'd be like, you sure? You can take it. You know, they coached you through it. And they were great to my family. And you know, just to stay there, I was pretty much so doped up that every day I thought I was in a different room, but I'd never left that room, you know? Yeah. And I had conversations with people that came to see me. I don't remember having conversations with, and then they say, oh yeah, when I was there, we talked about this. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know?
How long were you in the hospital?
I was in the trauma center for 7 days. So the 29th, I was released March 6th, almost 8 days. March 6th at 1 a.m., I was taken to Kennedy. They had a transport ambulance come get me. They took me.
It was like a good time for a transport.
Yeah, I don't know. So this is where, yeah. So I don't even know who the transport company is, but I go into this like dark basement. Okay. So I'm still medicated from Cooper because they gave me my meds before I left. And I go to Kennedy Cherry Hill, and it's the West Pavilion. I don't know if you've ever been in there, but somehow, some way, I guess paperwork got screwed up, but I was put in the lockdown unit for 10 hours. So the people that checked me in, I'm telling you, it looked like the county jail. Concrete floors, brown cinder block walls, no doors on the thing. The beds were just mats, you know, no doors on the bathroom. So the guy comes in, he's like, listen, he's like, I don't know what happened. We're gonna have to wait until tomorrow because they don't have any beds next door, you know, whatever. So I'm like, okay. So he's like, take this, you'll go to sleep. So I'm like, okay, what is it? So he's like, at this point, I've taken so much medication over the week. I'm like, whatever. So trazodone, which by the way, phenomenal. It's a non-narcotic. It's basically a dog tranquilizer almost.
Okay.
So
Sounds like a good time.
yeah, I take that. I go to bed. So I wake up about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I like look around. I'm like, where am I at this point? I look across and there's a Spanish kid sitting on his bed looking at me, 24, 25 years old. I'm like, anyway. So I sit up. I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, nothing. What's up with you? So I'm like, nothing. I'm like, I'm kind of just trying to figure out why I'm here. You know, like back when I was in Cooper, it was like the movie or the show Intervention. They were trying to talk me into going to get help. And all I want to do was get discharged and go home and see my dog at this point. You know what I mean? And my sister broke through the crowd, like in the show Intervention, started crying and said, you need to get help. Something triggered this. You need to get help. And I was like, okay, I'll go.
Sure.
The sister's crying.
Yeah,
sister's crying.
make it better.
Yeah. So I wake up in this lockdown thing. I start talking to the kid. He's very nice. I find out I know his uncle. He's from East Camden. I know his uncle. So when he tells me his last name, I'm like, I ask him if that's his uncle, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, I know your uncle. So he says, I'll tell you what. He's like, and I've told everybody this because this is. He says, stick with me. Keep your head down. Keep your mouth shut. Just everywhere I go, you go. He goes, hopefully they'll get you out of here because you don't belong here. So their lockdown unit is for people that don't know how to take their meds or just don't take them. So we're in the cafeteria, and I'm trying to eat, and they're knocking trays out of people's hands. They're fighting like in the middle of the room, like it was a war zone, and I've never been through anything like that. I'm like, oh my god, like this is crazy. So luckily they came and got me, put me in the
Gen
other
Pop.
Yeah, exactly. So when they put you in Gen Pop, they swing the door open and you go from a dark dungeon to like bright lights and pictures on the wall and everything. And I spent 7 days there. No, I'm sorry, I spent 10 days there, and they were 10 long days. The first couple days, I was like, first 2 days, I'm like, I didn't like my psychiatrist. I'm like, she's a bitch. I don't want to deal with her, you know. And then one of the nurses took a liking to me and was like, you need to start attending these meetings. Just attend a couple, see what happens. So I started attending these meetings, and they were 3 times a day. And wow, you know. So I'm in a room.
Started to click for you.
Yes, yeah. I'm in a room full of people. There's a girl there, a young girl. She grew up in Yugoslavia, and she's telling her story about how she was pimped out as a child by her dad and her brother, and she was raped when she came to America because she didn't know any different, and you know all this like, terrible things that I'm hearing from these people, and I'm like, I went to Disney World every year, you know. That's like, so I'm like, what am I doing? Like that's the point where it clicked. I'm like, what am I doing? This is dumb. What did I do for what? You know, I did what I did for what? So I started attending the meetings regularly, and one of the things that always brings a smile to my face and gets me through this is visitation was Saturday, Sunday for an hour, and then Tuesday and Thursday, I want to say. So Saturday comes, first visitation. I go in Thursday night, Friday afternoon, you know, I meet with my team and they, you know, all that stuff. So when they do their visits, everybody goes in their room, which is you had your own room.
Yeah.
What the ironic thing is, my one roommate I knew, so you know it was like, you know what I mean? Because you wake up in there at 1 o'clock in the morning, you have some strange dude that they brought in, you know, earlier that night, you know, and you don't know because their detox center and their mental health center are all in the same floor. So there's people laying in the floor, you know, with the shakes, you know, all that stuff. Moaning in the middle of the night because people were going through withdrawal. But I felt safe because the kid that I was with, I knew, you know, so.
Got lucky.
Yeah, I got very lucky. So the way they set up the visits is everybody goes in their room. They bring the visitors in, they take them down to the cafeteria, which is all the way down at the end of the hallway. Okay. So my room is like 3/4 of the way towards the entrance. So I hear my mom and dad's voice in the hallway, right? So I wait. They come in and they're like, Bobby, your family's here to see you. You have visitors. I was, okay. So I step out of my room, and it's probably like a 30-foot walk down this long hallway. And I see my mom and dad at the front of the cafeteria in the doorway. My dad's got this big smile on his face, and my mom's waving to me like this, like I just got done my first day of kindergarten. You know what I mean? Like, and then right then I'm like, look at this. What are they doing? Like, I'm in a mental health institute, and they're like, hey, yeah, well, look at you. You know, so I mean, it was really tough on them.
Yeah.
But so I went through that phase. You know, the whole I got into it. I got into it so heavy with the classes and getting involved in different stuff and help. You know, the guy that was in there with me, he wasn't going to classes. And I'm like, dude, come to classes. You know what I mean? Like, so he started going to classes and I was opening it up. And one of the kids that they had I call him a kid because he was like 25 years old. He was a therapist there. He was amazing. So I started going to his class. Well, they write notes on you. You know, Mike showed up.
Yeah.
Mike did this. Mike did that, and then it goes back to your psychologist or your caseworker.
Yeah. And
that's how they deem when you get out. So I started going to all these things, and I understand why I was there. So long the significance of my wounds and how it was done, I get it. Yeah. At the time, I didn't, but I get it now. So I was in there for 10 days, 10 or 11, hit or miss. So when I come out, so doing all your study, mental health in New Jersey is very lacking. The support is very lacking. The funding, it's terrible. I've done all the reading. It's terrible. So I come out.
People can't see it, so it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So they say to me, they're like, look, you want continuous help? And I'm like, yeah. So they're like, okay, we'll hook you up with the Princeton House in Mount Laurel. Okay. They take your insurance. Everything's great. Okay. So I go home. I don't hear from them. So I call the caseworker at Kennedy, and they're like, they're not answering the phone. And I'm like, no. She's like, I just found out they're not accepting any patients because of COVID. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
So it was right around that time.
Yeah. So So the day that I was released was a Monday. Tuesday, that place got locked down because of COVID. So it actually benefited us a little bit because the unit held 30 some people. And at one point there was only 5 of us on the floor because, they weren't letting anybody in. So I come home, and I had made a deal with my doctor and the nurses that I would spend a week at my parents' house because 1, I'm just coming out, and 2, it's comforting for them,
sure.
Because they got eyes on me at all times. So it was a busy week. I didn't tell anybody I was home. Only a few select people knew I was home. I went and had my staples and stitches removed that Wednesday at Cooper Trauma Clinic at 3 Cooper Plaza, which I didn't even know they had. It's only a clinic. You can only go there if you were a stay in trauma. So the lady took them out, everything was great. So I think I had like 20 some in one wrist, 20 some in the other wrist, 11 across the one arm and 13 across the other, and then 20 staples and like 2 stitches. So get that all taken out. I show up at Firehouse on Thursday. Nobody even knew I was home. Yeah, I show up at Firehouse. John, we mentioned earlier, he comes out, he's like, everybody's an emotional wreck. I'm an emotional wreck.
Jaws at their floor.
Yeah. So, because I didn't tell, like I said, Danny Devitt knew, my buddy Bresh knew, and they only knew because they were at the hospital with me every night.
Yeah.
Until the visiting time was over, and then, they were gone. And one of the guys said to me, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I don't know. I got to figure something out. I can't get into the Princeton House. So I happened to be talking to my brother. And my brother's like, wait a minute. He's like, let me see what I can do. So he's a state delegate for the PBA. So he makes a phone call. The next thing you know, he texts me a phone number and says, dial this number. Tell him who you are. So I dial this number. It's a Zoom call. This dude pops up. I'm like, hey, I'm Bobby Casey. My brother James. He's like, yeah, how you doing? He's the state PBA psychologist. So my brother got me hooked up with him. He reviewed my case and all that. And he was like, look, this is what I think you should do. So I told him about the Princeton House. So he's like, you're not going to get in there. Like, basically, it's going to be shut down for a while. He's like, find your own. He's like, if you need anything, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I knew of this therapist, Mitch, and I got with him, told him the whole story, and my doctor, originally the girl that told me that I was allergic, she had left the practice. So I went and saw the other doctor. And she was cool with everything. So the psychologist was basically like, if she's going to manage your meds, I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got with the therapist, Mitch, who is unbelievable. Like he is so much on my level. Like he relates everything to sports. You know, like he'll lead off the session with, "See Drew's goal last night? Like it was insane." You know what I mean? Like, and then
that was super important for you.
Yes, very important, because that psychologist from the PBA told me that 90% of the battle against mental health is having a good relationship with your therapist.
Yeah.
And
so you struck gold in the first shot.
I struck gold in the first shot. Yeah. And now I was going. He had me 2 times a week. It got down to 1 time a week, and now it's once every 2 weeks. And if I need it, I just text him. You know, and you know, it's all Zoom, which he's going to eventually just stay doing because it's easier.
Sure. And
it's comfortable because for me, I know this might sound weird, but it's comfortable for me because I can do it in
hands.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I can sit in bed and I have my dog.
Sure.
You know, so it's comfortable for me.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much like, I knew at one point, and this is what I hope people get from this, that if you have those feelings and something does happen, and you're as lucky as me, because I'm telling you, by the grace of God, I'm sitting here, you know, talk to the therapist, make sure you match. If you don't match, tell them, I don't match with you. You know, and he was upfront with me. He's like, yo, if we don't match, I'll find somebody that'll match with you.
So it's not like a hard feelings if you sit down with somebody.
No, not at all. Not at least him. He was like, look, I'll take your personality, figure it out, and find somebody good for you.
And now I guess with Zoom, it's probably pretty easy to for people just to get.
Yep. He just sends you a text message, you click on it, and you're right there. I mean, it's literally right there. Yeah. So
you've been going ever since.
Yeah, ever since. Yeah. So I literally come to the point where there's a song. I don't know if you remember the movie Donnie Darko.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a song in there called Mad World. And one of the lyrics in the song is, I find it strange, I find it sad, but the best dreams I ever had were the best dreams that I was dying in. Okay. I listened to that a couple weeks ago. It just happened to come on my iPhone. I listened to it. I'm like, fuck, that's how I felt.
Wow.
You know, back in February. And now, like, now I sleep until noon and I get up. I'm like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? What are we going to do today? Go to the firehouse for lunch. You know, I got my PAC certification back for the fire department, you know, so I can run on the first due truck. Like, I just feel things getting to the point where I wake up sometimes, I'm like, I was a little scared that I'm in this good of a mood. You know what I mean? Because of what happened the first time. Sure. But the continuous work over and over and over. And like I said, if that lyric in that song is what you're thinking, somebody out there, then that's the time you need to reach out to get help, because things aren't good, you know. And you think booze help? Booze is the biggest depressor you can get. Like, it will put you in the dirt, which it did.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you like, thinking back, like, is there anything that the therapist has recommended to you in this year that's really struck with you? Like you said, like going and doing things you hadn't done, like, you know, doubling the miles on your truck, or meeting up with people you haven't met, or working out, or going for a walk, or something that was different than before. Is there something that stood out to you?
Yeah. So he was very big on changing I'm a very giving person. It's just always been my nature. If somebody needs it and I have it, it's theirs. He wanted me to work on myself first. And I started to find that I was doing that. And, you know, I put it out there. If anybody needed anything, you just come talk to me. You know, and I've had a lot of people come to me, surprisingly enough. I mean, like I have, you know, taken people to, or has people taken the crisis, you know, that have called, and I got, you know, like messages from people I haven't seen since grade school that were like, yo, I deal with this, I deal with that. So he kind of told me to stay away from that a little bit.
Yeah.
And get myself whole first. Sure. So now I'm to the point now where I am whole. Yeah. You know, it's going to be a constant battle though. I'll never be 100% because of what I did. And it's not that I'm not 100%. I don't want to be 100% because then I stop.
Sure.
I want to continue doing what I'm doing to, you know,
to get 100%. A great analogy too.
Yeah. That's so.
So what you said, when you wake up and you're in too good of a mood, you're like,
yeah, I'm like, this is a little weird. Yeah. Like I have to double check it, you know, and then like I can smile, but one of the greatest things that I talked to my therapist about was one of the most important things to me was somebody who was really close to me said to me, I haven't seen you this happy in almost 20 years. And I was like, you see me as happy? And they're like, we always saw you as happy, but this is different, And I'm like, it's not the meds.
Yeah.
Because that's not what the med I'm on. It doesn't do that. It's just a stabilizer. And, they're like, no, dude, you're a different person. You're back to being how you were when we were, bar hopping and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I know that this whole incident that we talked about in your story, wow, man, I'm really glad that you're here to
me too, buddy.
tell that. Yeah, it's awesome. To just be sitting with you, I'm not bullshitting it. It's awesome that you're here. Do you think that because it wasn't job related, like how, your job, how they handled all this? Did you ever you said you didn't want to tarnish the name or, stuff like that. Like, how did that, how was that going back into it?
So I remember telling Alex that morning that I was just to let me go because my job was done. So at Cooper, our director of public safety for Camden County, my chief of the communications center, captains, everybody showed up to be with my parents while I was in surgery. Every one of them. And I know, so admin, you obviously have admin, okay? And then you have the grunts on the floor, us. Yeah. So we're not always going to agree with their decisions that they make upstairs, policies, stupid shit like that. But I cannot say enough about what they did for me. The director promised my mom that I had my job, that morning, even while I was in surgery.
Yeah.
They came to see me in the hospital, numerous times. Just reached out constantly. Somebody was on the phone with my mother every day. They handled the whole FMLA paperwork, all that stuff. My mom didn't have to worry about any of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I went on temporary disability and I stayed out until July. And my chief came to the firehouse the Thursday before, it was the 16th, because I was going back on the 18th. It was my birthday. And I'm like, I'm ready. July 18th, I'm ready to go back. Like, I'm done. So when I went on temporary disability, I was in the process of selling my house anyway. So I knew I had money coming, so just it was kind of lucky because I bought my house for cheap because I bought off a family friend, and then the housing boom happened and I was able to, turn it for big money. So, or not big money, but good money to be financially secure to where I could get myself mentally straight before I went back to work. So July 16th, I'm at the firehouse. Chief Jankowski comes up and sits with me, has a talk with me, basically tells me, we're ready for you, whatever you need. You got it. I also know, I'm sure, there was a part of him that just wanted to get eyes on me to make sure I was okay to come back to work. And I understand that, I totally understand that. And like I said, we have our fights upstairs over policies and stuff, but when it came to crunch time, I mean, they stepped up more than, they could have ever done. We had a Captain Sorali who had just retired. He was handling all the financial stuff for my mom, like doing the payroll clerk job for, so my mom didn't have to talk to her. My buddies that I worked with that were Westmont guys, were taking the paperwork back. They were filling it out, bringing it back to my mom. It was just, they were amazing when it comes to that. And awesome. I know I'll get my balls busted but when I went through and what they stuck by me with, is amazing. And I've been tested a couple times at work by people, and they've had my back, and you're not going to break me, bro. I went through what I went through. You're not going to break me, So, they were great. They just were fantastic. I came back July 18th. They had a banner up in the alarm room. There was cake. They had bottles of Fiji water. We had lunch. It was just nice. It was nice to come back. And it took, I'm going to say maybe like a month where I was starting to make this. Now I'm the lieutenant in the room, but I have a shift that's unreal. So I don't even know why I'm there. You know what I mean? Like, they can run them by themselves. But, I think they took a couple months to see if I was back on my feet. Not in a bad way, but like just to help out in a way. Like, hey, did you see this? Should we do this?
Yeah.
And I love that. Like those guys were amazing.
That's awesome.
Just if I would have only knew the support group that I had prior,
Sure.
And how my parents were. I lived across the street from them. I could just walk across the street that night, But yes, they were great. I had no issues with that at all. And even to this day, Eric Hogan, one of our captains, had a long conversation with him the other day, or a couple weeks ago, months now actually. Time flies after you die. I'm telling you. So, I had a conversation with him, and in the conversations with him, he said something to me that struck me more than anything anybody said to me. And he looked at me dead in the face and said, "You made the greatest mistake of your life," and he was right. As soon as he said it, I'm like, "You're right."
Yeah.
So yeah, like they've been great. Admin's
That's awesome.
been great, yeah. And just not just admin, the people that I work with.
Yeah.
I thought I would get the support of the alarm room.
Yeah.
I got the support of the center. You know what I mean?
Has since your return and since this incident, have you noticed a change in people having these conversations? Have you noticed them taking any different approach about mental health?
So on a pro and con style.
Yeah.
So one of the cons is I know, like, for a fact that so you work in a police department. When somebody says something, 15 other people know it 2 days later. It's just the way it works. Same as a firehouse. So it's a sorority, So a retired employee from our place told two of my current coworkers that I did it for attention. My answer to that is swallowing 10 Tylenol and calling 911 before it hits my stomach. That's calling it for attention. Yeah. We've both seen it in our line of work. Okay. What I went through was not attention. Yeah. Okay. But I don't let that get to me.
Sure.
And the guys at work don't let that get to me. They put their, they stand in front of me. But yes, a lot of people have been comfortable to come up and ask me for something, like, I need help about this. Can I talk to you about this? Can my sister talk to you about this? And as long as I'm like, I tell them, I'm straight up with them, when they ask me, as long as I'm good with myself that day.
Sure.
Yeah. Whatever you need. Dark humor. Very big in the alarm room.
Yeah.
My situation is terrible, but when you work in public safety, dark humor is the way you get through things.
Yeah.
It was always why are those cops laughing at that accident scene?
Yeah.
It's because they're getting through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, a lot of the things that get said, like if somebody does something wrong, one of the guys on my shift will be like, cut it out. And then but that, to me, that's funny. You know what I mean? And they get it.
Yeah.
They get it. And, just.
You ever had anybody say, "Why don't you just kill yourself?" or something like that?
No, but I've had somebody say, at least I didn't try to kill myself.
Oof.
as just a joke, but never but I can take it because I love the kid that said it. Yeah. He was with me the entire time. You know what I mean? So yeah, dark humor is a big part of it. Some people don't get it. Yeah. So if we have somebody walking past and a joke is made, they kind of just quickly go out the door.
Sure.
But my shift has been amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I lost one from when the event happened, who was amazing. His family, his mother packed a food bag for my parents, and he brought it to the trauma center while I was in surgery, but they replaced him with another really good friend of mine. So, it was very difficult to lose the one, but I also gained the same type of person, you know what I mean? Somebody that cares about me, and I've known him, a long time. So, they've got me through all this.
Awesome.
Yeah. The dark humor, the just being able to understand me. I mean, I have one kid on my shift that I swear to God, he lives in my head. He can tell. Like today, for example, I was in the back and behind the desk, and one of the guys is like, "You're not going to join us today? Like, you haven't said anything." And this kid is like, he's nervous. He's nervous for tonight. So I'm like, shit, this kid knows it.
Wow.
When I went to get my PAC certification, I was leaving work to go right to the burn building, and he's like, "Why are you all fidgety?" He goes, "Are you nervous about going to the burn building?" I'm like, "Dude, get out." I bust his balls about it all the time. Like, get out of my head.
It's like,
yeah. But he knows.
Yeah.
So if there's a bad time, that kid has me in the office talking to me. And if there's a good time, we're running together.
That's good.
Yeah. So.
And that's why it's good that there are people that can kind of at least even say it to you, that they have the foresight or whatever. Is there anything else that you think jumps out at you that you think has helped over this time period?
So one of the things I came to grips with is I'm not ashamed of what I did, and I'm to the point now where, like, I had an incident in Target the other night where the lady gasped and said to her husband, like, "My God, look at his arm!" Like, I couldn't hear her. You know,
Wow.
it was so open and so loud that the girl that was stuck in the shelves at the end of the aisle apologized to me. I'm like, it's fine. People are ignorant,
Yeah.
you know. But I'm not ashamed of it. You know, part of me regrets it because of what I put people through. The other part of me doesn't regret it because if it didn't happen, I wouldn't be sitting here right now because I probably would have eventually done it later.
Yeah.
You know, or it just got worse and worse, and you know, so yeah, I definitely that's come out of it. You know, I realized that I had to own it. I learned that before you blame anything on, you know, situations or people, you need to own it yourself. Sure. Because I did this. Nobody held my arm down and cut me. I did this to myself. So that was something that came out of it. The whole, you know.
Was Perez searching your house for a bad guy?
Yeah. And kicked my door in.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. They kicked my door in. The central lieutenant lives at the house and has the keypad to the front door. But doesn't give it to him. So, yeah.
Man, wild stuff, Bob.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was a crazy ride.
Well, again, I'm glad you're here. For the viewers that can't see his shirt, it says suicide and then noun, a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Don't do it. Let help. Don't do it. Get help.
That's right around my gut. That's what.
It's bold. It's in your face, and I think it takes a lot just for you to even wear that. So,
well, I think that's the biggest thing is you have to be bold, because I was speechless about this prior. You know, when TJ did it, I was pissed off. I never understood it, and then when I did it, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I get it. Yeah. You know,
and hours prior, you had one of the best days.
One of the best days of my life, and
so that's what boggled this whole thing. Just I can't wrap my head around any of this topic. As much as I try every day, it really just
I mean you I'm telling you, you've been through it, you know, with Michael, and you have a long way to go, and you'll never forgive him. I mean, I'm sorry, not forgive him. You'll never forget him. He was your best friend. You know what I mean? Like, I just talk about when I talk about like TJ, like I just remember the good things now, because the one thing that I want to get out there is families. Since I've been through this, families can't blame themselves, because when you get to the point that I was at, and unfortunately the point that Michael was at and TJ was at, there's no stopping it. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there's no stopping it. That's why you got to get out, and like Mark said, you have to find out why, so you can get out in front of it for somebody else. You know, unfortunately, we lost Michael, we lost TJ, and you know, their families are destroyed. And then there's the other aspect of it where now I made it. And yeah, there's a little survivor's guilt, but you know, I made it, and now it's my turn to stop things from happening like Michael and TJ. You know, it's like that's my whole point of this.
And you said the same thing that I usually finish my show with, and that's to help one person. Yeah, I know you're going to. Person, yeah. I know you're going to. Anything else you think you need to put out there for everyone?
Nah, I think that's it. I mean, like I said, I just like to thank the people that were there for me. People I didn't even know. I had just one quick thing. One of the things that got me is when I went back to work on July 18th. We have a girl that works in Metro as a dispatcher. I've talked to her maybe like 2 or 3 times, and it's been like in passing, like, hey, how you doing? And I looked up at my desk at 7:15 in the morning, and she was standing there, and she said to me, I just wanted to, tell you how glad I am you're back. And I was awesome. Like, wow, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah. Good shit, man.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, I'm glad that we got to do this.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you are able to get this out, and I know that you're going to help someone. I know that hopefully this video is actually going to bring more people to you, so I hope you're ready for that.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, and good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So again, my goal is to shed light on these topics, normalize these unnormal conversations, that help one person. If we help one person, it was totally worth it.
You're doing good work, man.
Thanks, man.
You are.
So again, if you can subscribe below, and share the hell out of this. Again, the more people that see this stuff, as Mark said the other day on our video, if we widen this audience, start having these conversations, I think we can help more people. So thanks again.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. And to feel the way that every child should sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying